Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody had a great morning. A lot going on. Our next event is the Ticketing Solutions panel discussion. Really excited for this. It's obviously a really important topic annually for all the bowl games. So I want to introduce everyone on stage. Our moderator is no stranger to the bowl business. She's worked with many bowls over the years, managing game day as a consultant. Please welcome Jessica Duemig, who continues to be a consultant for Bright Strategy and Solutions. Jess, welcome.
Thank you.
Sitting to her immediate left, the Vice President of Partnerships of Logitix, Travis Underwood. Sitting next to him, the Director of Partnerships Development for Prolific One, Daniel Kaiserman. And finally, on the far left, the Chief Revenue Officer of TFL, Clay Discher. Thank you all for joining us. Jessica, take it away.
Sweet, thanks, Nick. All right, well, welcome to the Ticketing Solutions panel. We're gonna have some fun with ticketing today. We're gonna start with some questions. We'll have a time for Q&A for anyone in the audience. And then we'll adjourn here so everyone can go to the trade show and partake. But first, we're gonna have everybody reintroduce yourselves. We're gonna start with Clay. Tell us a little bit about you and tell us what makes your company unique in the ticketing space.
Sure. So Clay Discher, Chief Revenue Officer at TFL. We're a national distribution, pricing, and analytics company that partners with teams, venues, schools, bowl games, and other rights holders to manage and distribute inventory. A little bit unique about us, we have a large retail brand, ticketsforless.com. We also do a good bit of what we call our business solutions, which is white label websites for a variety of stakeholders throughout the industry to help move additional incremental inventory. And then, yeah.
Sweet. All right, Daniel, same question.
Yep. Hi, everybody. Dan Kaiserman, Director of Partnership Development with Prolific One. I've been here about a year and a half now. Prolific One, similar to TFL in that vein, that we specialize in proposing and formulating partnerships with entities throughout the sports and entertainment industry, distributing something in the area of 2.5 million tickets every year for our rights holders as well. I think one of the unique things about us is our partner-centric approach to the way we propose and execute on our partnerships. We really look to try and act and serve as almost an extension of ticketing teams, BI teams. We really touch all areas of front offices, athletic departments, and I think that's one thing that we really look to align ourselves with. So it's not necessarily just a ticket inventory play, movement, distribution play. We really look to involve ourselves and ingrain ourselves with every partner at another level.
Cool. Travis.
Awesome. Travis Underwood, VP of Partnerships at Logitix. I've been with Logitix for about 5 years now, overseeing our rights holders across the major sports and bowl partners. Similar to these guys, right? Distribution, pricing is kind of the name of the game. Where we've differentiated ourselves over the last few years is with our technology integrations, through our integrations with primary ticketing systems such as Access, Tickets.com, Pacquiao and V-Venue, et cetera, connecting directly into the ticketing system so you can get away from the allocation model and more of the direct feed model, as well as serving as a consultative data and analytics company where some of other partners may have inventory or positions with a particular entity that we're able to still consult with you on price scaling, pricing strategies, distribution, packaging, et cetera, in order to provide value in additional ways.
Very cool. Well, welcome to the three of you guys. We're gonna go through some very pressing topics here, especially as we talk about the expansion of the CFP and a lot of other stuff. So Travis, you're staying in the hot seat. We're gonna start with you. Many of our bowls are concerned about dwindling season ticket base, and they're doing all they can to prop this number up. Is that an area you think they should be focused on?
Yeah, I mean, season tickets are an interesting thing, right? When you have a single event, season ticket holder is the name of that kind of membership package. But I think in looking at our bowl partners over the last couple of years, we found that those season ticket members are not truly fans of the event. They're usually brokers that are trying to come in undercover and take some revenue opportunities away from you. I think I saw a survey that a lot of people here probably filled out that was compiled, and there were 2 things on there of what are you doing to encourage season ticket members. And out of the 5 things on the list, one was providing discounts or locking in 3-year prices. And really at that point, in our opinion, and working and analyzing the information with our partners, it's, yeah, you know, you're getting that money up front in June or July, but by the time the game comes around in December, those people, 40-50% of them are just selling their tickets and taking revenue that could have gone to your bottom line instead. So while I think that there's, you know, a benefit to having a true fan, I think, you know, everyone in this room would be smart to actually take a deep dive into who those customers are. Are they attending games? Are they just selling your tickets and profiting off of your hard work?
Got it. So Daniel, with the first round of the playoffs happening on the campus of the higher seeded university, what will be the biggest challenge that these guys are facing as they try to achieve sellouts, thinking about if season ticket holders play into that at all?
Yeah, I honestly, the biggest challenge is going to be time. Time to create and execute a sellout plan, I think, is going to be the biggest component of making sure that these events are not only go off without a hitch, but are successful and sustainable. Depending on the school and how aggressive they want to get, I think you might start to see some of these schools enact some sort of early season or renewal opt-in plan during the renewal campaign in an effort to try and secure a committed base of their season ticket holders to buy into that game prior to the selection date or deeper into the season. Rather than, you know, waiting that long, they might have 50, 60, 70% of their season ticket base committed for the game as they enter that time period, as opposed to chasing people who may have committed earlier on in the process. Those people are your most ardent, diehard, they're season ticket holders. They're in it with you all the way. So logic would dictate that a good component of them are going to buy those tickets early, and then you can use that later part of the sales cycle to focus on maximizing the outstanding revenue, season ticket holder add-ons, groups going on sale with the general public, and making sure that they are what is being focused on, as opposed to necessarily just chasing season ticket holders who may have just committed early.
Gotcha. So Clay, what are some things that TFL does to help creatively move tickets if there is a time crunch, if season tickets are not where they want them to be, outside of the standard distribution channels?
Sure. So I mentioned we have a large retail brand, and so we've got a great marketing department that's got some creative ways to push out inventory in quick turn situations. We also do a good bit of benefit aggregator business where these companies give rewards to their employees for job well done, promotion, time served, et cetera. Those points can be turned into a variety of things, and we power the ticketing back end of that. And so it allows us to make targeted marketing pushes in specific areas of the country where those games may be most prevalent. And then, you know, lastly, we've got a ton of white label distribution channels that we can manage and massage to make sure we maximize our sell-through.
And you guys are doing some interesting stuff with NIL. What are you doing in regards to that?
Sure. So we're building out. We've done a good bit of NIL initiatives with some of our partners, direct with athletes or collectives in the past. We're building out what we're calling NIL seats, which is a white label platform that will allow our partners or their collectives to realize a piece of the revenue on every ticket sold on that site. So not just for their school or their game, but for a Taylor Swift concert or a pro game or a concert, whatever it may be, the collective and therefore their athlete can get a piece of that revenue. And so it attracts to their point, it attracts a diehard fan that wants to give back. And because of how we adjust the markups, we're no more expensive than any other marketplace. So it's truly incremental revenue. We're not asking for additional dollars from their donors who are already stretched thin. It's a seat they're buying anyway at a price they'd pay anywhere else. The only difference is a piece of it is redirected to help their student athletes.
Kind of an added bonus there.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So Daniel, what impact do you think the new 12-team playoff format is going to have on the secondary ticket market?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we sit here in April of 2024, we have a lot of unanswered questions that are going to be answered over the next year when we're all together again. I think we're going to find that I think each round is going to have its different challenges and its different opportunities. I think in the first round, we might see a little bit more in the way of incremental revenue opportunities just based on the fact that I think the pervasive issue of opt-outs, players opting out of the game entirely, might drop off a little bit now that these games have taken on new meaning. They've got, there's a future there. So I think that's something that will make each game a little bit more attractive to purchase, not only through the secondary, but obviously on the primary as well. I think that when you look at the overall 12-team system now, the top 4 teams historically have been your traditional powers, your blue bloods. There's obviously some teams that sneak in there and upturn that a little bit, but traditionally these are teams that have high demand, that are always big volume and revenue generators. So in those cases, you can have an idea of what that demand is going to look like, and even sell tickets ahead of even when their opponents are announced. So that will be interesting to monitor. I think the 9 through 12 ranked bucket there is going to provide a lot in the way of volatility. Where will those fans travel to what is in effect a road game in the first round? A couple of schools of thought on that. If it's a newfound experience for that program, for that school, they're having a great year that they got into, this is their first real exposure to a playoff, maybe they come out. Maybe they really come out and embrace that and travel and treat that as their first bowl game. If it's a school that's maybe having a down year by their standards and they kind of slide back to that 9 to 12 ranking, maybe they've got their sights set on later rounds and they'll save on travel, save on purchasing tickets for, again, what is in effect a road game for them until they get a little bit deeper into the playoffs. So, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of different things that we have to look at and monitor, and I think, again, we'll know more a year from now. If you're asking me, I think, of which round I think could be the most challenging, it's that semifinal round. It's a very, very tight sales window. It's obviously you're asking a lot of the fans, too, to buy tickets and travel in weeks in succession. So we'll learn a lot more, over the course of how this kind of comes about and how it progresses. But there's a lot of information I think to be gleaned from just looking and studying as to how this plays out this year.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it's going to affect the visiting team in that first round, right? So how they're going to either get price gouged by maybe season ticket holders reselling, or if they're going to travel, maybe they happen to have that bigger fan base anyway. So could be an interesting kind of turn, as you say, over the next year. Travis, with the CFP playoff, again, expansion starting this year, we've talked about it a little bit. What are you recommending that your partners do to be ready for the impact of their bowl games and the expansion games?
Yeah, I think, from a day one scenario, we always advise our partners to go on sale, as early as possible in the sales cycle. That allows you to, if you're a potential New Year's Six game in the playoffs, to, take advantage of the hype of a certain team making a run. But also from a bowl game that's not within the playoff format, you can take advantage of, just quite frankly, more days on sale results in more tickets sold. Being able to take advantage of, games from last year, right? Carrying over that excitement as early as possible in the football season. We've seen time and time again, bowl games coming off of their best year, their sales from June through September, and then in the first couple of weeks of the football season are head and shoulders above, anything that has happened previously. And we all know that, usually those home run Grand Slam games are driven in large part due to a regional matchup, having a local team, Alamo Bowl, Texas, Military Bowl, Virginia Tech, et cetera. You're not going to get that matchup again the next year, but you can take advantage of, the lingering memories of those games. And then from there, I think to his point about there's going to be less opt-outs in the larger games, I also think there's going to be less opt-outs in the non-playoff games too, because again, you're still playing for something throughout the entirety of the year, and it's kind of the last hurrah for that. So I think that, at the end of the day, probably getting access to the same teams. There's really not much that would be changing for a lot of the bowl games, and who is available to them to select. And it's realistically going to be a lot of business as usual.
I'm going to jump around for a little bit because you talked about the draw and how the local market obviously attracts more of that fan. Daniel, how, if at all, does your strategy change with a bowl partner in the event that they have a challenging draw?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that is not necessarily unique to just the bowl space. I mean, we see it really throughout sports and entertainment in general. If it's something circumstantial, if there's something that is causing maybe a less advantageous draw than just the two teams that are playing, you have to kind of deal with it. But one way we have to approach it is, I think, almost creating demand via a lack of supply, at least initially. Not necessarily, I would say, not necessarily chasing short-term goals at the expense of future games. And what I mean by that is basically having, maybe looking at this as taking on a less amount of supply initially to dress the building the right way. If it is a less than advantageous matchup, we fill the building from the middle up and then the back and out, so that we're able to really reach your goals of putting fans where they need to be. For TV purposes, for sponsorship purposes, et cetera, we make the building look the way that you want them to do it, want it to be, in an effort to really, again, kind of condition the fans and condition your ticket buyers to buy where you want them to be and when you want them to buy. Again, it kind of goes against conventional wisdom, maybe against the nature of a lot of the people in this room, me myself included sometimes, but I think, these games don't happen in a vacuum. There's always going to be a future game. There's a game next year to think about. So, by chasing that short-term goal of really pushing volume at the expense of ticket price is not something that I think is sustainable year over year. Again, you want to set a precedent with your fan base that, look, there's not going to be a fire sale every year. There is not going to be a dump of tickets. They're not going to be able to wait until a week out, 3 days out, the day of your game, to buy tickets for pennies on the dollar. This is going to be something that we want to make sure is consistent, that the demand is there throughout, and that ticket prices hold to ultimately protect your product, to protect your game throughout its cycle, regardless of who is actually in it. So, just taking a different approach. Just, again, not thinking necessarily just short term, but long term as well.
Keeping the integrity of the pricing structure that's had so much thought put into it.
I'd like to jump in there if you
Sure.
don't mind. I think too, one of the big things is obviously, whether you're working with a consolidated partner or not, but there's also a couple extra people that are in this equation, right? It's the schools as well. So if you have that low demand scenario where you as the bowl game have a vested interest in keeping prices high, but you also got there we go. You also have the school who has a financial commitment to purchase and move through a certain amount of inventory. Their goals are not congruent with your goals as a bowl game, right? They're looking to sell those tickets for whatever they can get back for them, potentially through a separate partner. So I don't know what's going on with this mic. So I think one of the biggest things is getting on the same page with your schools who are in your game, communicating with them early on. Hey, if you do not have the ability or bandwidth to move through your tickets, not giving them to multiple parties to sell, so that the ticketing strategy is fragmented, and that has really proven beneficial across the board for our bowl partners to make sure that they're working consistently with how their schools are working.
I think we missed half of that, but we'll get that sorted. Clay, what is the benefit of consolidation versus having multiple secondary partners?
Yeah, I think like Travis said, no matter how good a job the bowl game does at consolidating, you still have two schools on the other end of it who have their own needs and their own priorities. So I think the more consolidation, the better, in our opinion. I think you have better pricing controls. You're having more open and in-depth conversations with your partner. You're probably getting better data, better analytics, and better insights out of that partner because they understand the entirety of the market, not just their small piece of it. And I think over time you'll realize more revenue, more seats sold, and to Daniel's point, more seats sold where you want them sold than you would otherwise.
We talk a lot, and I'm going off script here, so whoever wants to can jump in here. We talk a lot about data, right? We talk about, oh, the analysis, oh, the analytics, and how often are the people in this room and at your partner schools, how often are they using this? And are they actually using it to the scope of the power of what it can provide?
I know for our partners, they're using it a lot. A lot of ours are making dynamic pricing decisions or adjusting prices on the fly based on the secondary data we're providing back. Depending on the partner and the setup of the deal, we're also providing demographic information on their buyers that they can utilize to retarget. So our guys are using it a lot to make decisions.
You guys see the same thing?
Yeah, I think on our side, we have developed some unique partnership models where not only are we managing secondary inventory, but we're also managing the primary inventory as well. So that way there's not that delay in the feedback loop of, hey, and especially for bowl game announcements, it's happening in minute by minute increments. So, at schedule release, that hour is incredibly impactful from a sales revenue standpoint. So, we're actually manipulating inventory and pricing not only on the secondary channels, but also through TM1 and through Ticketmaster and SeatGeek and other providers, so that prices are changing across the board at the same time. So in some cases that model is not applicable, but that same type of feedback of constant texting, calling, etc. It's like a war room during schedule release of what's happening, what's the potential impact of these teams participating, as well as even setting up before that of scenario planning of traveling potential teams, their revenue, their ATPs from their home market as an away team if they played in any neutral site games, etc. to be prepared for that conversation when it happens.
And I think, just to jump in, I think that also it's the data, obviously, the requirement, the need for it has exploded, obviously, over the last 5 years in particular, but it's also the data delivery and how that's getting to people within your space and people within athletic departments, and making sure that we are reaching them in a way that is digestible for every single person. It's not just the ticket sales team anymore. It's not just or ticket sales leadership. It's not just the BI teams anymore. You have CROs, CFOs, deputy athletic directors that want to see this in their own way, and they value different data points and components that maybe other departments don't. So making sure that we are packaging and manipulating and delivering data in a way that's digestible for anybody within athletics or within each of your games is crucial.
So we've talked about pricing, we've talked about consolidating the marketplace, filling the stadium the right way, selling the right tickets at the right time until certain thresholds. What do you recommend, if partners do nothing else, what do you recommend to alleviate any issues they have in their sales cycle, making it as smooth as possible from schedule release, thinking that we have maybe a week or 2 weeks till the first game, and then all the way through? How can they alleviate any of those issues?
For me, I think personally, just transparency, an open dialogue, making it a true two-way partnership is crucial. I think having an understanding of what we define those tentpole moments to be. So when are your pre-sales? When are your on-sales? What does the relationship between the bowl game and the participating schools look like? How far out should we align on broadcast strategy, knowing full well that we do have a condensed sales cycle? We're going to want to make sure that we're maximizing demand throughout all of it. I think all of this can be accomplished and all of this can be done by simply meeting regularly. I know that a lot of people don't want more meetings and calls on the books and on the calendars, and I totally get that. But I think in our space in particular, it's vital to have regular meetings with your partners in this space to make sure that there is nothing that is being lost. I'm not saying you have to meet on a bi-daily basis when you're 11 months out from the event to share about the 5 tickets you sold in the week prior. But I think it's important just we can provide insights to the partners to help drive decision-making internally. But it's equally as important to hear from you as the bowl games to tell us about your market, learn about what's going on circumstantially in each of your markets, learn about different trends that you're seeing, what's happening on the primary. And that, in a lot of cases, is going to help to allow us to pivot or manipulate what is going on mid-cycle, so it's not just reliant on that 1 month, 2 week, in some cases, run up to from the selection show to the bowl game. So I would just say that transparency, that open line of communication constantly, we really, really value that with our partners, and our model is truly to be an extension, as I mentioned before, of the team.
Yeah, I think it's really about aligning incentives, right? At the end of the day, that you're all going to the same ultimate goal. And with our partners, they're completely transparent about, what are our budget goals from a revenue standpoint, from a ticket sold standpoint, what's important to our board, what's important to our, internal working group of specific things. Because, at the end of the day, depending on how you set up your partnership, there are potential scenarios where, your goals are incongruent with your partners potentially. And we try to avoid that at all costs so that, whatever's best for the game, it's not about what's best for Logitix. It's not about, well, in the contract it said we have 5,000 tickets, but if you're selling them on your own and there's benefits to that of like, was said before of future games or potential sponsorship opportunities, that inventory is moving back and forth in a two-way street because we're participating on an overall pot instead of our specific pot that we're trying to hoard and take advantage of to maximize for our benefit and not for the bowl game's benefit.
Clay, thoughts?
These guys covered it. I would say, to Travis's earlier point, the earlier you can be on sale, the earlier you can be making pricing decisions, that kind of thing. I think the more information you have, the better prepared you'll be for selection day. And then transparency, like he said, I think that's huge.
And is this a conversation that maybe ramps up as we get toward football season and starts now? Or is it something that really, until we get to Selection Sunday, I mean, yeah, we can talk in theory all we want, but then that day really solidifies it. What do you guys think is the best kind of cadence toward that?
I think we've seen good success. In narrowing the cadence the closer we get to the game, obviously. There are always going to be updates and trends and things to share from partner to partner. But the closer you get to that event, there is so much going on, so much data that can be transmitted one way or another, and helps drive that decision making, and it really in both directions. That I think it makes sense to narrow that cadence down. Traditionally, we from the selection show on, we meet on a regular basis about once a week. But inside of 2 weeks, it's on a pretty much an every other day, every third day basis, really, to try and make sure that nothing is getting lost here. And we found that to be a successful model. But no, I think those meetings have to be a regular thing, just beyond even football season.
Gotcha. Okay, so Travis, we're going to kind of end with you, and then we're going to turn it to the room for some questions. What impact have you seen among your partners in updating manifests and creating new price points to optimize their revenue?
Yeah, I think that's something that we've really focused on over the past couple of years is, I'd say most bowl games have, 8 to 10 price points on average, and really expanding those to be comprehensive across the 20 or 30 potential price points. Not saying that you need to have 30 different price points, but to have the ability to, change one sideline versus another, or to have row 1 be a different price than row 5. And across all of our partners, we've seen about a 10% revenue increase from doing that. I think the benefit of kind of broadening your manifest and your price codes is the ability to not only raise prices in premium areas, but lower prices in the back rows, the corners, the end zones, and actually make a more affordable price point for the community, which helps from the goals of all bowl games, right, or community initiatives and things of that nature. I think in that regard as well, kind of what we talked about on distribution and games that aren't performing as expected. We've seen with our partners that, at the end of the day, there is a set amount of customers who are willing to buy tickets and attend an event. And when you're, facing a lack of those customers, I think the worst thing that you can do is drop prices. So number one, having greater flexibility in your price points allows you to have some cheaper price points so you don't have to drop, but also just selling what you can sell and using those community programs, using VetTix, using other, distribution outlets that are, either free or heavily discounted but are not publicly available to keep your market strong, continue maximizing on the ticket revenue, but then also moving, your quantity goals as well.
I lied. We're going to do one more because I have another question for you. Do you guys find, and this is for each of you, that any sort of bundling helps with this revenue, specifically maybe adding more value so that ticket prices appear to stay the same price, but there's maybe a little bit more value, or 4, 5, 6 packs, anything like that that you guys have seen that you would recommend or recommend against because it has the opposite effect? Any thoughts there?
I think it's pretty standard, across the industry, 4 packs, hot dog, including hot dogs and things like that. The tough thing for a lot of games is, that you might not control your concessions, or, you're not, that contract lies with the venue instead of with the bowl. So, there might be costs coming out of those that negate kind of the benefit of the extra tickets sold. I think, it's usually the community programs, the youth football groups, the things like that, where you're offering, large scale group initiatives that seem to drive the needle the most in that regard.
I would agree. I mean, I think on a case-by-case basis, each game can evaluate that individually if that's something that they feel is sustainable. But again, fans are more savvy than ever, and they don't forget. If you put something out there one year that they really respond to, and it's maybe at the detriment of a price point or at the detriment of an overall opportunity, then they're not gonna forget that the next year and expect it. So, again, I would be careful. It may work for some bowls that might not for others, but it's something I think that every individual entity is going to have to examine themselves.
I think we always advise to be careful with those type of promotions. To his point, fans have a long memory. If you give away something really valuable, it does cheapen your ticket value. And if you give away something that's not as valuable, do you really drive incremental revenue with the hot dog or with the free Coke or whatever it is? And so if asked, we always advise to be very careful and very particular about how you do that.
Great. Well, thank you guys. We're going to open it up to the room for questions. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. No questions. We talked on so many topics. Anything you guys want to add?
I put some plants in the audience, and I guess they're not participating, so I'll have to check on those people.
All right, I'll ask one. How do you see, you're putting me on the spot now, I have a script. How do you guys see the next year, like what keeps you awake at night when you think about tickets, bowls, football, CFP expansion, the Jets being really bad again, or maybe good this year? Jets fans, why? I don't know. What keeps you guys awake at night?
I think for me, like our industry is rapidly changing. I think everyone in this room has probably seen the maturation of the secondary industry from, brokers to beginning to partner with small allocations, and then the consolidation, even to the point I said where, we're actually managing the primary for a few of our partners, and wrapping up that entirely in one. I think there's, still a lot of room for, there's a lot of outside sales agency, there's sponsorship sales group, right? Especially in the college space, you've got Tamar, Learfield, you've got these conglomerates that are doing, providing a lot of different services, where, relatively speaking, I think all of us up here are still pretty niche in that we are, secondary distribution, pricing, et cetera. I think the next wave of this industry is going to be wrapping up even more kind of outside consulting into your internal operations.
Yeah, to Travis's point, I don't necessarily think about it in a negative way. I more so think about just where are we going to be a year from now in this industry? What else is going to happen? There's been so much just change over the last year, 2 years, 3 years that has impacted our industry, not obviously on the field and but off it too from a revenue generating standpoint. What is the next thing down the chute that will impact us as an industry, as a revenue generating entity? But I think it's exciting. We operate in an ever evolving space here. So I'm looking forward to whatever it is that comes next and meeting the challenges head on. But I say that as I sit here now, not being faced with them yet, also. So, ask me a year from now.
Yeah, we'll table that one. Clay.
So I think one thing we're tracking is how does the new playoff affect everything, and we agree. I think there's a massive revenue opportunity on not only the quarter semis, finals, but the home sites. But there's also a lot of risk. Like they said, it's essentially a wild card game now, and so if you have thousands of seats to sell and you get the right draw, it's going to go nuts. If you have thousands of seats to sell and you get a non-regional opponent or maybe a group of 5 school that's way far away and you have short turn to sell them, how does that affect things? And then we think it's even going to trickle into the regular season a bit. In the past you see just wild swings on 1 or 2 losses because so many games in the previous model are elimination games. And so Ohio State, Michigan last year, 2 undefeated teams. Last game of the year, that's an elimination game. This year it's for seeding. And so how does that affect not only the playoff, but how does that affect demand on that game or on Bama, Georgia this year or on any other number of, really big games that in the past would have been life or death that are now feel more like an NFL game between 2 division leaders. And so how does that trickle down to not only the bowl games, but to the regular season as well?
Just to jump in on that, for 3 years prior to joining Prolific One here, I was on the college athletics side, on the primary, and what you're speaking to right now would keep me up at night if I was still in that chair. How they're going to manage the sale of that game in particular, that as a home site, that's not going to be an easy thing to get fans really to wrap their heads around. I know I said that they're savvy, but they're also very, very stubborn in a lot of ways too. So I think having a very, very strategic, concrete plan as to how that is going to operate in year one, it will dictate a lot of how it's going to be handled in future years for these schools. But that would keep me up at night.
Any questions come to mind? There we go, Mike.
Yeah, so to answer the first part of your question, I think a lot of the buying behavior is based on the timing of that purchase. People that are buying early in the sales cycle majority of them, they're looking for better, more expensive premium inventory. They're planning in advance, right? It's a purchase that they're making a conscientious decision that they want to have a great experience. It's usually also an older demographic that's making those advanced purchasing decisions, whereas on the opposite end of the spectrum, day of buyers, it's a last minute thing. Hey, this sounds fun to do. We're not doing anything else. They just want to get in and enjoy the game. Also, again, typically a younger demographic, someone that's making up plans, as they go. So just in that regard, we usually see more expensive seats sell early, cheaper seats sell late, lower level versus upper level, et cetera. Again, in a high demand scenario, that kind of goes out the window, but from a typical sales cycle of an event, that's definitely true. To hit the second part of your question, Clay's going to be a little different with his response here, but we are a distributor of inventory. So the marketplaces, the StubHub, the Ticketmaster, SeatGeeks of the world, they actually own that customer relationship. So we do not own the customer data. Obviously, our partner owns that customer data because we're sending it back to them as we transfer tickets, fulfill tickets, and deliver those to the customers. But we do work with the marketplaces to be able to do target marketing, to highlight our inventory, things of that nature, so that we are taking advantage of those marketing opportunities.
Yeah, agree with Travis. I think on the better inventory, we like to sell it early. We see a bigger deterioration on that midfield lower than we do on any other price point throughout the sales cycle. And if it's a really good sellout situation, we see a smaller percentage over face on that seat than we do generally on the get-ins or on other price points as well. On your marketing question, we would push targeted marketing materials to your example, to our Tennessee buyer list. We'd also push some special inventory towards our benefit aggregators so that they can market their partners, and we'd go through our list and we would target home market for the bowl and then both team markets to try and make sure that we get maximum visibility, and that's how we would push it out.
Mike, does that answer your question? Fabulous. Any other questions in the room? How are you using AI?
So that's a good question. Personally, at Logitix, necessarily AI. We believe all of this is kind of an art and a science, right? We've all been doing this for a long time and have historical, anecdotal knowledge that we're using in conjunction with our partners to be able to price and sell inventory. So, I think from that, I mentioned the feedback loop and, the time in a bowl announcement scenario, like things are changing literally in minute by minute increments. There's not enough knowledge to be able to get information on listings being posted and then funneling through sales and all of that information to have AI be a strong component of, real-time demand pricing. There's definitely some predictive aspects to it. And also in a consolidated model, you're kind of creating a feedback loop of where decisions that you make, if you have all the inventory, the decisions you make are funneling your future decisions. We use a lot of the historical data, the real-time feedback that we're getting from sales, from our team of pricing analysts that are kind of managing events, in addition to kind of the automation aspects of our technology.
Any AI going on your guys' side?
So we use predictive analytics, but at this point, there is still a human behind every pricing decision using those analytics to make the best decision possible.
Yeah, same for us. We try and overlay the human element on top of the automation. We know the automations are great. They do exactly what we're looking for them to do, but ultimately having the human component catch on top of that can catch more of the circumstantial things that may or may not happen related to weather, related to maybe there's a big injury or something like that that's unforeseen that a pricing automation might not catch. So yes, predictive analytics are huge and are key to really everything that we do, but we still do rely on the human element to overlay to catch anything that may fall by the wayside otherwise.
Any other questions? All right, well, Travis Underwood, Daniel Kaiserman, Clay Discher, thank you guys so much. And thank you guys for attending, and enjoy the trade show.
Thank you.